Okay, I'll get this on. So yeah, I was commenting on how this all made me think about pigs and pork, and we've touched on it a little bit with when I talked about Mary Douglas earlier in the semester, and purity and danger and food, and how pork was this, pigs were this in-between kind of animal, and so they weren't proper to eat. And I'm going to give you another anthropologist's analysis of the same kind of issues, but he comes up with a very, very different sort of interpretation. And then look at, so this is the idea of particular food choices, and then look at the connection. When you think of pork and the way it's prepared, what are the things that spring to mind? A little bit. A whole roast pig?
No, I mean like.
Oh yeah. But I'm just thinking about dishes, like different recipes. Barbecue, right? And ribs and breakfast. Yeah, and sausages, right? Breakfast sausages too. Bacon, yeah. All this craze of baconizing everything, right? So we'll look a little bit about some of those food choices. I mean, what's the thing about barbecue? What sort of, who tends to be the one who barbecues? Yeah, men are barbecuing. And how's it done? Is it like?
It's a long time.
Takes a long time. So these long, slow cooking foods, and it's not necessarily super expensive cuts of meat, right? You kind of want them a little bit fatty, especially for cooking that long. So we can think about who is going to tend to have more reliance on those kinds of foods. So sometimes food choices aren't actually choices. They're things that are, this is the only food that you're given access to, and then what people do with them. And then how it becomes, taken up again by different classes. So we're going to think, and I'm going to lead into this analysis by Marvin Harris, and there's an article he wrote, Abominable Pig, and he did a few other sorts of food-related analyses too, about cows in India and that sort of thing. But what do you think of when you hear pig? Like, what are the nice things? I have a few images here, like a babe, and it's popular. What are the nice things that you associate with pigs? They're smart. Yeah.
They're delicious.
What? Anything else? What else?
Dirty.
Well, is that nice?
Oh, it's
Nice.
But they would be dirty if they had sweatpants.
I don't really have
They
much
actually-
association. Well, now there's like an obsession with like the
teacup things?
yeah, like the little ones. So maybe a lot of people think of like a cute little face and a little tail. And
So they're cute. They can
As
be
a
cute
pet.
as a pet. Those, because it used to be potbelly pigs, which I
Yeah.
suppose are a little bit bigger, and now they've gone to the smaller ones. What were you gonna say? Were you gonna say something, Kelly?
Oh, I was going to say some people have this act, so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And so, does anybody know somebody who has one as a pet?
We had this sub that would like always come to our school in elementary school. She had like 9 potbelly pigs at home, and she was like obsessed with them. And this is, like, she would like talk about them all the time.
Instead of a cat lady, a pig lady.
And not even like the little pigs, like potbelly.
Yeah,
She
the
could
big
go
one.
on.
Has anybody been on a farm that's had? Yeah. What are they like?
We used to feed them jelly beans. It's the best memory that I have of them. They were really good. They love jelly beans.
Yeah.
I heard they have personalities like dogs, which is the sucks that we do.
Yeah, and they make a lot of noise, and they have some personality. So that's the other thing, is that they've got a lot of personality, like pork pig, and our popular images emphasize that. So now, what are some negative qualities, before I go to the slide that has pictures and stuff?
I've only heard Animal Farm. It's bad. Anyone read Animal
High school, yeah.
They're dirty.
Dirty.
They're absolutely disease-ridden and disgusting.
Yeah, there's this.
It's gross. Yeah, they eat trash, whatever.
They eat anything.
Yeah.
They're loud and
It's true,
smelly.
they do eat everything.
They're loud, smelly.
I think that, like, if I let my dog be out in the pen like a pig, he would be dirty and he would eat everything. So I think
They
it's
do.
just- Yeah, it's
Have you
just
seen
the
dogs
way
on a
that
farm?
That kind of
They're carnivores, and they're still eating other stuff in there. So the nice one I can talk about is I had horses, which is part of the boots. I used to train horses, and we had dogs, and so the farrier comes in and trims the horse's hooves, and they're little, these shavings of hoof left, and the dogs chewed on that like a chew toy. I mean, there are other things about the horses that they enjoyed too. But pigs really, and that's part of Marvin Harris's argument too, is that pigs eat all these sorts of things. Yeah.
They're destructive.
Yeah, they are.
They go wild, they'll just destroy
Mm-hmm.
anything in
So, yeah. And we do have this tendency to sort of describe these magical properties to pigs, like it's possible, but then it's impossible.
You should make a movie about it.
I love Spider Pig. So here's the dirty stuff. And, and usually I get this,
I wouldn't like my kids.
You're building his immune system up.
Exactly. All this antibacterial stuff. Now we need more pig nose licking. But why do pigs do this? You know.
I do know. Pigs do not have sweat glands, so the only way to cool themselves off is in water or in mud. If you were to take a full-size sow, for instance, and put it in your house and keep it in air conditioning, they're actually very clean animals, but and you can give them a bath and everything else, but this is their only way to actually keep cool when it's hot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I heard, in contrast to other animals, like they know, like to stay away from where they like go to the bathroom. They have like, is that true? Like they have common sense like that.
They're very
So
smart.
if they can, they will be clean animals.
You can train them just like a
It's
dog.
kind of like a stereotype that they're dirty.
No, well, it's partly the environment that we put them in, right?
Yeah.
That they can't escape it, yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily that the pig is like so much dirtier from any other animals. Like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with it. So what it comes from is more of a religious perspective that has been said inside the Bible and been said inside the Quran and stuff like that. That the pig is an animal we're not supposed to eat it because it was dirty. So
Yeah.
that idea just kind of stuck with everybody.
Yeah.
I think that idea partly comes from what I was saying earlier about them having parasites, because a lot of people would get sick from the pork, so then they thought that was like a bad meat, like a dirty meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me show you some pictures. So y'all have all eaten your thing. So one of the diseases associated with pork is trichinosis, and that's actually one of the main ones that they emphasize in cooking your meat sufficiently. Pork, and it's something that actually travels from other carnivores through feces. It infects the pig, and then it basically becomes part of the meat itself. So it's lodged within the meat.
But they don't
when
get
they're-
that if they're fed like good quality stuff. Or,
Right.
like anyone would get a parasite if they ate slime.
Rat feces.
Yeah.
We get parasites if we eat rat feces too.
Yeah.
So, so that's where, again, the dirtiness is part of the environment that we construct for pigs. Because pigs are, you know, that whole family of animals are woodland species. They like to be, they're naturally forage in the woods, they stay cool that way, and that's the ideal environment. So what happens is when the environment is shifting from woodlands to grassland, then the pig has to be helped by people to keep going. And then we tend to put them in pens where they're in their own poop and eating other poop. And so if we feed them junk, then that's what they're going to get. And so it's a organism that has, you know, it insists in the meat muscle itself. And then it's passed through it. There are skin and eye, you know, irritation, like these pink eyes that come out of it. And then we pass that larva on, basically, through our feces. So we can infect other people, even if they're not eating pork.
Did it get fixed with antibiotics, or is it?
I believe so.
Is it parasitic?
Yeah, it's a parasite.
Like, yeah, I think antibiotics.
Yeah.
Well,
But
people
basically,
don't want that in their meat.
yeah.
No, I mean if you get it as a person.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's not deadly nowadays.
Yeah.
If you, and plus, once you start having these symptoms, usually you can get some sort of decent diagnosis. The treatment for the symptoms as well as to eliminate the trichinosis from your system. Yeah. What's another one that you can get from pork? It's fairly common. Is tapeworms.
That looks so fake.
And it's
a real worm.
I know. But
and
it
they
just
grow
look-
in your intestines.
I know, it just looks like a piece of paper. Like it really does.
Yeah.
It's all shriveled up and dried up.
Yeah, and it's well, it's a little damp. They're sort of flat. They're kind of a flat worm, and they're bad because they absorb the nutrients from your food, right? And again, it's this issue of cooking enough, and I think there's a difference between people tend to consume minimally cooked or minimally altered beef, like there's
Yeah, like that medium rare stuff.
yeah, and even less than that, basically uncooked beef. If it's very high quality, is commonly done. Fish, seafood, chicken not so much, right? And pork not so much. So we're making these distinct categories. And you know, controlling the environment, it would be possible to have pork sushi if you're really into it, but yeah.
Go ahead.
I just had a question. Do you know like how you're not supposed to have like undercooked poultry? Like why are ducks different? Like I know you can have duck like rare.
Oh yeah, and in fact that's the way it's normally served is rare.
Are they like how is it different?
It's partly this farming environment, I think. And it's also the traditions that are associated with how you prepare the food.
Yeah, because I think you can also have quail like when it's underdone.
Yeah.
But is that because it's like
It's a
wild?
game bird, yeah.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Though, you know, any game animals are potentially could have some infections, but they tend to not be the ones that are
Mhm.
more viable for hunting. So if they're farmed game animals, then
Then no.
you know, well, but a lot of venison, other sorts of meats can be also quite rare. Yeah.
You can actually eat raw chicken. You just have to put it in a bag full of like lemon
Yeah.
and kill all the bacteria.
Well, it's a chemical cooking,
Yeah.
and so that's the same thing with ceviche and other seafood sorts of things. That's acid is
Yeah.
cooking
That's what
the food.
It's just a texture though.
Yeah.
Well, and we just, there just aren't those food traditions, right? Of having, you know, it's okay for duck and for game animals to be less cooked, but then we want that chicken cooked. So tapeworm. But tapeworm you can get in different sorts of meats, not just pork. And here's some examples of ones that you get, especially from beef. Brucellosis and anthrax. So these are both bacterial agents, and anthrax is deadly. Like if you get exposed to the spores and they lodge in your lung, it used to be we'd have an 85% death rate for humans infected with anthrax through the lung. You can also be infected through your skin and other ways. And usually causes breathing problems, but you can also have the skin and mucus, it irritates, you know, changes in the mucus membranes.
I guess my question is, like, where in the class did we transition from talking about chocolate to parasites? And can we go back to the chocolate?
Well, I was trying to give you a little variety here.
Chocolate goes with anthrax.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chocolate with a coating of
Spaghetti and
anthrax.
meatballs.
Environmental health. This is what this is.
It is. It's environment. Yeah. It's human environment interaction, which is we've done a lot of that with cacao and chocolate. And I'm just giving you some other. These are. It's a very famous anthropological study too. This Marvin Harris's thing. And then brucellosis also. This is often deadly. This is not so deadly. But again, it's where we get those ideas of defilement. Where does it come from? Well, all of these are either contaminated flesh itself or because it's through feces, in contact with the feces. So here's the guy. And his point in looking at all this, because he was looking at the religious, like Mary Douglas's interpretation about pork avoidance was that it was a funny animal, like it didn't quite fit the right categories, and so it was rejected on those counts and seen as morally not good. He emphasized instead the sort of ecology of pigs, the ecology of humans, how those came together, and then who the pigs started to be associated with, and why some groups rejected pigs for those reasons. His point was that, you know, we already talked about the no sweat glands. We brought up how they're omnivores, and that they basically are a woodland animal. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Like with beef, for example, you can have cows. Do you have to eat the cow's flesh to get something good or something that's sustaining out of the cow? No, we have all this dairying and other sorts of products that we subsist on. We don't do that with pigs, right? What else? What else are pigs used for besides just eating?